These are the Blazar Remus 1.5x anamorphic lenses, the B set. And it's also my first set of anamorphic lenses ever. Most of my current professional work is in corporate video and social content, but I do work on my own passion projects within the film industry. Therefore, in this video, I want to look at these lenses not only from a technical perspective, but also a value proposition. We're living in some fascinating times where owning a set of anamorphic lenses, once previously unheard of from owner-operators, is now possible. If you're here for the quick summary, these lenses are excellent, and I think they're incredible value for money. I prefer the B set over the A set and also the newer Blazar Kato lenses, which I'll discuss some more. However, I don't think these lenses make sense for everyone, and if you don't have a burning hole in your pocket, you could absolutely put your money to better use. I'll tell you more about why I purchased them throughout the video. For my usual disclosures, I have no working relationship with Blazar or Greatjoy, their parent brand. I bought these lenses myself, and this video is totally unsponsored, so let's talk about it.
I think I should start by letting you in. Take a look at you and start to lose my balance. What am I falling into? I think you're something brand new.
To begin, I wanted to briefly talk about the history of anamorphic lenses because I think it places a lot of this into context. Effectively, in the 1950s, television is gaining popularity and movie studios need a way to compete with the idea that people no longer need to leave their homes in order to watch a movie. New formats are expensive and complicated to develop, so rather than create an entirely new film format, having to change every movie projector in the country, they decided to use a different technique of squeezing a wider image onto the same kind of film and then de-squeezing it later to create a more immersive experience to viewers. It was here in the early 50s anamorphic lenses got their start. Of course, as many filmmakers know, spherical lenses never lost popularity and have remained the dominant type of lens for film and video production. However, the super widescreen format became synonymous with Hollywood and most likely plenty of your favorite classic films. However, while film gear has proliferated and drastically reduced in cost over the last 15 years, up until recently, anamorphic lenses have always remained an expensive pipe dream. Ari's anamorphic range, for example, remained around $30,000 USD per lens, and you can only rent Panavision's range. Therefore, when a smaller US company called Atlas came out with their Orion series in 2018, with lenses priced at $10,000 each, the filmmaking community rejoiced at how anamorphic filming was now becoming accessible. Yet since then, Chinese lens manufacturers including Sirui, DZO Film, Laowa, and Greatjoy have all been working on their own designs and drastically reduced the cost even more. That brings us to last year when Blazar, a new spin-off brand from Greatjoy, announced their Remus 1.5x lenses. The A set consisted of 3 focal lengths, the 45mm, 65mm, and 100mm, and was generally really well received from the community, with the 100mm performing the worst of the 3. Still, for less than the price of one Atlas Mercury 1.5x anamorphic lens, you could have a set of 3 lenses, which overall seemed to perform quite well for the money. I was about to pull the trigger on these lenses, missed the sale by accident, and then decided to wait for the next sale. And instead, Blazar announced a B set consisting of a 50mm T2, an 85mm T2.8, and a 125mm T4. Plus they also announced a wider full-frame 33mm T1.8 lens too. Straight away I knew this was the set to get, and so far I have not been disappointed. Rather than read you a boring spec sheet, here's the basic rundown of these lenses. Effectively, they're all different T-stops. They all have shorter focus throws than is typical for cinema lenses, and similar minimum focusing distances of around 0.75 meters. You can also get them in EF mount, but I prefer PL for the most secure and widely used option in cinema. I picked up my set with silver flares, but you can also choose blue or amber. Blue would be more reminiscent of some older Panavision lenses, which again scream classic Hollywood a bit louder, but silver means your flares will take on the color of the light being shown. When the A set was initially launched, there was actually no option for silver, and once again, I'm glad I waited because that blue or amber decision would have really killed me. The flares on the Remus are quite subtle compared to some other anamorphic options, and I actually don't mind this. Flaring is not one of the reasons I've ever wanted a set of anamorphic lenses, and I can often find it quite obnoxious or distracting depending on what's been filmed. Still, you will absolutely see flares on direct light sources, so this is something to consider when deciding if these lenses will work for you. Overall, this set performed quite well, even wide open. However, the 125mm is definitely the weakest. Blazar thankfully learnt from the 100mm of the A set and made the 125mm T4 instead of a T2.8. But even at T4, I've noticed a little blooming and softness, and therefore I've mostly been using it at T5.6 and above. Thankfully, at the 125mm focal length, you can still easily achieve a shallow depth of field if that's what you're going for. The 50mm is probably the strongest wide open at T2, sharpening up by T2.8, and the 85mm is sharper at T4 than wide open at T2.8. However, given these are anamorphic lenses, they are not designed to be optically perfect, and potentially you might like some of the character they produce wide open. In terms of colors, I found the 85 and 125mm are fairly well color matched and neutral, but my 50mm definitely leans more green than the other focal lengths. As you can see, these were shot under the same lighting conditions at 5600 Kelvin, and on the 50mm the wall looks a different color compared to the other two lenses. While I do like a set of lenses that are well color matched, such as my Dizito Film Vespid primes, I can forgive these lenses given their price point. But I'll be keen to see how the 33mm stacks up when I receive it. Lastly, these are 1.5x anamorphic lenses. This is compared to other options on the market like the Blazar Katos, which are 2x anamorphic lenses, denoting a bigger squeeze factor. The reason you might actually prefer 1.5x over 2x is the aspect ratio you're capturing in. With my Sony cameras, the FX6 and A7S III, they film in a 16:9 aspect ratio, meaning I'm reducing the height of my final output by 1.5x to achieve my final D-squeeze. Then, depending on my preferred format, usually 2.39:1 or 2.35:1, I'm still having to crop off some of the edges to achieve the correct aspect ratio. 2x anamorphic lenses on 16:9 sensors just aren't a great match. But if you have a camera that can shoot in 4:3 like a Red Komodo or Blackmagic Pixis, 2x anamorphic lenses are a great choice as well. Compared to 2x, 1.5x anamorphics have a more subtle effect, especially noticeable with the out of focus areas, which tend to be less oval shaped. Still, this is all personal preference, and as I mentioned, 1.5x lenses tend to be more versatile in the current camera landscape. So what's my experience actually been like using these lenses? Well, first off, they're incredibly well built for the price. They're all metal, I love the silver look, and the dampening on both the focus and iris rings are nice and consistent across the set. On my Dizito Film Vespids, the rings on the 90mm macro are too loose, which has always bugged me, so I'm really glad to see there's no issues here. People have said the iris and focus rings are too close together, which might absolutely be true if you're trying to run multiple motors on a rail system on a full production, but I'm mainly only using one motor for focusing, so this has been fine for me. You would just have to run them on opposite sides of the rail. The shorter focus throw is also really nice. Other lenses like my Dizito Film Vespids have a 270° focus throw, which is great when working with motorized focus systems and first ACs, but for single operator type work, it's usually impossible to do a large focus rack without needing an elaborate follow focus setup. Monitoring is also something to consider. Many cameras like my Sony FX6 have an inbuilt D-squeeze option for 1.5x anamorphic lenses, but my A7S III doesn't, but thankfully there are solutions regardless. To overcome this, you can use an external monitor, and I'd probably suggest this anyway, given a D-squeezed image on an already small monitor will look pretty tiny. I've been trialing the Monitor Plus app on my iPhone for my A7S III, which works really well, but you could also use an Axoon CMO or really any other external monitor. I mainly use an Adamus Ninja, which is great because I can de-squeeze and then see the cropping guides for 2:35:1 for making sure I get the best results. The only issue I found with the set is the 50mm isn't wide enough, which is more of an inherent problem with anamorphic lenses rather than this particular set. Effectively, while it's roughly 33mm on the horizontal, the 50mm on the vertical makes it very challenging to get establishing shots without being very far back. Here at Flinders Street Station, I've never struggled to get the entire building in from across the road, but I just couldn't do it with the 50mm. And this is why I'm really excited to get my hands on the 33mm when it arrives later in the year. So using these lenses for the past few weeks, what have been some things I've learned? Well, stabilization is a challenging aspect of working with anamorphics. For those on a Sony system like the A7S III, the active stabilization doesn't work because you're effectively working on two different focal lengths. While this might sound pretty self-obvious in hindsight, I wanted to test it and found some warping artifacts on my shoot, which made some of the footage unusable. If you have a camera with IBIS, I would suggest turning it off when using these lenses. Also, for stabilization in your editing software, you also need to be conscious that because of the very wide aspect ratio, you're generally having to crop a lot more to stabilize your footage. In certain cases, I found this actually led to a noticeable drop in resolution and creates a justifiable case for shooting in 6K. However, more reasonably, I would just suggest using camera supports like a tripod, dolly, gimbal, or whatever else to physically stabilize your camera while filming. Lastly, I would also suggest upon receiving these lenses, you print out the Blazar focus chart and follow the tutorial to ensure your lenses don't need any shimming or back focus adjustments. Thankfully, I found my set worked really well, but this might not always be the case, especially because the 100mm on the A set was quite problematic for some people. The final question really becomes, should you buy anamorphic lenses? No, but also maybe. I see a lot of people arguing that anamorphic lenses are objectively worse than spherical, so what's the point? And they're kinda right. Anamorphic lenses are generally known for their character or flaws. Those lens flares, which are sometimes sought after, are actually an aberration which some cinematographers just embraced in the early days, while others actively fought against to have a cleaner image. Lenses such as the ARRI Anamorphics are known to be some of the cleanest options available, but plenty of Panavision lenses used on classic Hollywood films have some pretty crazy characteristics. It's this interesting dichotomy where audiences are now used to the digital sharpness and highly saturated looks coming from smartphones and digital sensors. So cinematographers are always looking for ways to soften this and add their own unique touch. But obviously there is no one perfect lens, and anamorphics don't work for every project. If you're looking to invest in your first lens set, choosing spherical, even if that's autofocus lenses from your chosen camera brand, makes way more sense than a highly specialized set of lenses, which will actually make you less versatile as a DP. However, there is also something strange happening now. With anamorphic options dropping so heavily in price, it might make sense to own a set rather than renting for each project, especially in markets such as Melbourne, where rental options are more limited. For example, renting a set of Atlas Mercuries costs around $400 per day here, and after 2 weeks, I could have purchased my entire 4-lens set of the Blazar Remus lenses. Of course, the quality of these options will differ, but if you're not at a level where productions are paying you to rent these kinds of lenses, ownership over your own set, which you can charge out for $100 a day, for example, makes sense. However, beyond the business side, shooting with anamorphic lenses has given me such a great amount of joy, because after filming for 21 years, starting with my first DV camera, this is the most unique look I've ever been able to capture. I've spent years putting black bars on my footage to give it the same feel as cinema, but it's just never the same. The differing focal length on the horizontal and vertical axis means you can't properly recreate the anamorphic look without actual anamorphic lenses. Even just the act of de-squeezing feels like a development process and makes the project feel a little bit more magical. For myself, that was well worth the investment alone because it's both challenged and inspired me for what to create next. The Blazar Remus are not just a set of cool lenses, but they're also a symbol of change in the industry. The mere fact there's now a big enough market for inexpensive anamorphic lenses to exist blows my mind. Because that young version of me who always dreamed of using these kinds of lenses now can, thanks to the size of our filmmaking community. And while no lens is ever perfect, I don't take for granted options like the Remus line exist. But that's gonna do it for this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the content, and I'll see you all in the next one.